Hey everybody. I hope weekends have been good. I hope everyone's doing well. We are getting towards the end of this semester. I know you're like, but it's March. But April's going to go by very, very quickly in terms of final projects. We have a couple breaks in there, a few asynchronous days for you to really apply some learning. So this is going to be one of the last sessions we actually have recorded, which is bittersweet because it's been a fun semester. But we're going to be talking today about background research and things like literature reviews. And why is background research actually important? Why are we actually talking about it? What's the use of it? We're going to be talking about all those things. But first, again, just a reminder about your assignment. So there is the practice interviews and qualitative summary assignment due by the end of the day on Sunday, the 13th of April. And you might be thinking, well, I remember in the syllabus it was actually a week earlier. Well, I pushed it back just to give you all plenty of time, enough time to get it done. We had a couple assignments pretty close together. So if you have any questions about that, please let me know. Again, there's that link to the Google folder for you to post your assignment interviews for me to transcribe them for you. Make sure it's that folder and let me know once you've done that so I can get that transcribed for you. But let's get into background research. What is the point? What is background research? What is it? What is the purpose? Let's talk about it. So up there on the slide, you see some information. Background research serves as the foundation for designing a study. It is your foundational component in a study, and it involves the gathering of information, the gathering of insights to define your research focus and ensure that your work builds on or contributes to the wider field. So if you're doing this in sociology, what has other people done? What have other sociologists done? What have other researchers found on this similar topic or this same area that you're working on? It's important to solidify where your research sits within the broader landscape. So really, background research is the process of exploring existing knowledge, existing theories, and data that is relevant to your research topic. And this background research process, it helps you to understand what has already been studied, identify even gaps in what has been studied, and refine your research questions or hypotheses. Figure out what's been done, what needs to be done, where does your research fit into that? And it can even provide you directions for future research going forward. Now, what is the importance of background research? Just four really key components of why background research is important. So one, background research helps to avoid redundancy. So doing background research helps to prevent duplication of studies and helps you to focus on newer contributions. So you're not repeating over and over what someone else has already done. Now, remember we talked about in the experiment and the stat side, all this sort of stuff that replication is good, absolutely. But if you're trying to provide some new set of knowledge on a particular topic, I want to make sure you're not repeating every single exact thing that someone else has already done. Two, background research also helps to inform research design, which we've talked about. This is that whole course, is research design. So background research guides decisions on what methods you're going to use, the variables you're going to use, the data sources that you're going to want to use. That's really, really critical. Background research also helps to support credibility. So background research helps to demonstrate a well-grounded understanding of the topic in academic and applied sociology. So whether you're doing it on a more academic study or on a more applied, maybe consulting end, that background research helps you to understand the topic more, helps the audience to understand the topic more. It's really important that we understand all the things that are going into the complex phenomena we're examining. And then additionally background research helps us to refine research questions. So it helps us to identify specific and relevant areas for investigation. Maybe we don't know where we're going to go. Maybe it's more exploratory, right? If we're interested in a topic, we don't know what's been done on it. So we start on our background research and then we realize, oh, here's a really interesting path that I want to go in. So here's the research questions around it. That's a way in which we can refine our research questions and provide a bit of a direction going forward for the researchers. So for example, let's say you're researching the impact of social media on teenage self-esteem, okay? Background research would involve reviewing studies on adolescent psychology and social media use, or exploring sociological theories on things like identity formation. or even identifying gaps, such as maybe the lack of focus on certain platforms or a certain demographic groups in these areas. So all those things we can identify and get a lot of use out of the background research component. So what are some steps in conducting background research? Because this is a little bit different than actual literature reviews. We're going to get into literature reviews on the next slide. So I want to differentiate background research versus literature reviews, because I'm sure you've heard of literature reviews, and maybe you've heard a little bit of this as well. So the steps in conducting background research, there's 6 key steps here on the screen. Number 1, identify your key concepts. So break down your research question into core concepts like gender inequality or urban migration, for example, and use these as search terms for scholarly materials on this subject that's already been looked at. Scholarly materials, all research has already been done, or terms or theories. 2, review existing literature. So search for scholarly literature like books and journal articles and other sorts of reports on your topic of interest. Platforms like Google Scholar or JSTOR, ProQuest, or those library databases, those are the types of areas you're going to want to be looking in for reviewing scholarly literature, not necessarily just regular Google or looking at magazine articles. We want scholarly literature from these sorts of platforms. And you want to, through this, identify certain patterns and debates or even gaps in the field that you can identify. 3, theoretical framework. So explore these, for example, in this class, sociological theories. The main key sociological theories relevant to your topics. That might be conflict theory, symbolic interactionism, or structural functionism, feminist theory, whatever that might be. Explore those theories that are in relation to your topic. And then consider how these frameworks can actually shape your research design or your research analysis or your contextual understanding of what are we actually looking at? How do we understand the data in front of us? How do we understand our topic better in a more theoretical foundation? Number 4, examine prior research methods. So analyze methodologies used in similar studies. So whether they're using surveys or interviews or focus groups or ethnography, whatever that might be, understand what other people have done and evaluate the strengths, the limitations of those methods, and the applicability to your own research. Make sure that, am I using the right methods, or how do my methods fit with those, or how do they augment or contribute or coincide or provide something new that other people haven't done. Number 5, explore relevant statistics and data. So look for existing data sets or demographic reports that can provide you some context. Things like census data, right? Those broad level data that can provide deeper context to your research. And then assess how these can complement or contrast with your findings. So use existing sources to complement or even contrast with what you're finding in your research or what you anticipate to find. 6, and finally, contextual understanding. So study the social and cultural and historical and political contexts for your research area. What this does, it helps to frame the study in a more cohesive light, frame the study in a specific way, and make it relevant to broader sociological issues. It solidifies it in that contextual understanding. Remember, we talked way back about the sociological imagination, and that historical, political, cultural context, those social contexts are really, really important for understanding a topic. So do that through your background research as well. Understand the time, the context, things that are going in to understanding this unique phenomena that you're looking at. So now I promise we look at literature reviews as well. So what is a literature review? Well, it's an element of background research, more formalized in many ways. So a literature review is not just a summary of sources. Rather, it is a critical examination of few key things. What has been studied? How has it been studied? So what methods have been used? Key findings and theoretical approaches previously used, and ongoing debates and unanswered questions about your specific topic. So you're not just summarizing in a literature review. You're not just summarizing background research. You're actually being critical. You're critically analyzing it. It's a little bit different. There's that added component. And so a literature review lays the groundwork for your study by connecting it to those broader academic discussions. So how do we actually conduct a literature review? There are these 6 steps again here. So 1, define your scope of your project. So identify your research question and your focus area, and make sure you narrow down your key themes and your variables and your subtopics that are relevant to your study. You want to make sure you're really defining your scope. You can't be too broad. You might not want to be too focused. Make sure you identify what is actually the scope of the project that I'm doing here. Step number two, search for relevant literature. So this is similar to that the background research slide as well, but use academic databases like JSTOR and Google Scholar, ProQuest, your library databases. Search using combinations of various keywords. So whether it's the key elements that you're looking at, right, like gender inequality or workplace and sociology, looking for those key terms in combination of those key variables and those key terms and concepts that you're using in your study. And so include peer-reviewed journal articles, peer-reviewed books and reports, and credible online resources as a part of your literature review. We want to include those scholarly and peer-reviewed sources, not those more popular magazine sort of articles or popular sort of sources that may be out there. While those can be valuable to maybe augment certain parts of your study, we want to really have a base foundation in our literature review through these academic peer-reviewed sources. Step number three, evaluate sources. So focus on sources that are recent, number one, unless you're reviewing more historical theories or trends. So focus on sources that are recent, that are relevant to your topic, and that are credible and peer-reviewed. Think of those three things as the type of sources you want to include in literature reviews in your background research. So they're sources that, again, are recent, relevant, and credible. And then pay attention to the methodologies of those sources, of the population studies, and the key conclusions that have come from those studies. Step number four, organize the literature now. So now here's the organization component. Group these studies by themes, by theoretical frameworks, by methods, or by findings, and use headings and subheadings to structure your literature review logically. A lot of times literature reviews, they're included at the beginning, say, of a research project report. This is how you're going to organize it. You're going to organize them by key themes, by key theories and methods and findings. And I'll show you an example actually at the end of how this actually looks. Step number five, analyze and synthesize. So compare and contrast the findings across these studies you're looking at. Highlight trends, commonalities, and disagreements, and identify gaps or areas where further research is needed. And number six, write the review. So you want to have a typical review is going to have your introduction, your body, and your conclusion. Depending on the report, it's going to be different things. So let's say you're just writing a research review or literature review paper like we do in, say, our Social 111 classes and other classes. You're going to have your introduction explaining the purpose and the scope of the review and the topic, and then the body of it, of organizing sources into sections based on themes, debates, or methods. And then your conclusion, summarizing those key insights, gaps, and how your research will contribute to the field. And again, same sort of thing of how this fits in even to broader studies, like the example that in broader papers that like the example I'm going to show you at the end here. But again, just before the last couple of things here, the purpose and benefits of literature review. So let's first start with the purpose. So this might be a little bit of repeat information, but literature reviews are really, really important. I want to hit this home. So number one, for the purpose of literature reviews, contextualizing research. So literature reviews provide background and show how your study fits within the existing body of work. And it helps to identify gaps and highlights areas where knowledge is more limited or inconsistent. Also helps to develop theoretical foundations. So helps you as a researcher to select a framework for analyzing your research question. It also helps you to refine your research questions, so guides you to focus on specific, relevant aspects of your topic, and then informs your methodology as well. So a literature review offers insights into successful methods and common pitfalls in previous studies in similar areas. So you can learn from what's already come. And some additional benefits of literature reviews here. So literature reviews help to enhance credibility by demonstrating familiarity with the field and establishing your research's actual relevance to what you're doing and to the broader field around you. It saves time. So literature reviews help to prevent duplication of studies by building on existing knowledge. Also, they broaden perspective. So they expose you to more diverse viewpoints and methods and findings. And then finally, literature reviews also support academic rigor. So they ensure that your study is grounded in evidence and contributes meaningfully to theoretical and, say, for example, sociological discourse. So there's a lot of purposes and benefits of literature reviews. They're critical. So for example, say you're looking at a topic of the role of social capital and educational attainment. So your thematic review might discuss, studies on social networks and community support and family influence, while your theoretical foundation, maybe you're looking at the role of Bourdieu's concept of social capital, like we talked about, or we will have talked about in Social 111, for example, talk about social capital a lot. And then you identify maybe certain gaps there as well. So maybe there's a lack of research on social capital's role in more online learning environments. So that's just an example of the types of things you might find through a literature review and why it's so important. But let's look at a specific example. We won't dive too deep into it, but I just want to show you what this looks like. And so this is a long report. I think we actually looked at this report previously as well. It's one you can reference for how to write up qualitative data findings and themes. But again, this literature review example helps to show a key part of triangulation of what literature reviews help to establish your position in that current research and industry knowledge, right? And so let's look at what that could look like. So you can actually click on this link via the notes, and it's really pages 1 through 12 in the literature review. So this is a report that might put you to sleep if you try to read the whole thing. Again, you don't have to do that, but just wanted to have you give you a reference for what a applied research or academic report literature review can look like. You see the introduction there, but then when you get to the background section, so you see that it's outlined by header. So you have the background, a summary of background research. Then you have major theoretical foundations, perspectives and foundations. So then it's sectioned off, like I mentioned, right, in by headings. So there are various different perspectives that are summarized in this paper. You continuing down, and you have all these different headings of the key theoretical perspectives that fit within, or that your study, this current study, or the study that has been written fits within. And then you have a literature review section as well on the social and cultural context and implications. You can see it there. Maybe I'll zoom in a little bit. Again, you can see it a bit better when you click on the link yourself. But again, sectioned by headings here. And so this is just an example of how you might write up background research and literature reviews for a paper that you would do or a report that you might write. And then you get to the method section, and you can actually look at how we talk about how do we answer these questions. So that's an example of what this actually looks like, of what a background research and literature review looks like. That's all I've got for today. Just wanted to establish what is background research, what's an example like a literature review, what's the purpose, what are the benefits, and then also here's just another reminder of the assignments of our practice interviews and qualitative summary assignment due Sunday, April the 13th. And there's that link to post your assignment interviews in so I can transcribe them for you. And then let me know. And then if you want to meet one-on-one, as always, if you have any questions about any of these materials and you want to meet one-on-one, or you want to just meet one-on-one to talk through other things about the class or whatever it might be, always happy to do that. We've been meeting one-on-one with several of you. So please let me know if you have any questions at all. And then we can go from there. But looking forward to seeing more of these assignments coming in. And then we'll get going with our final unit, unit number 4, in the coming week or so, kind of putting it all together, really applying, and then really it's just dedicated for your final project. So thanks again, everybody, and I will see you next time.